Welcome to Sports and Stogies. Now, introducing your hosts, Cameron Winkowitz and Austin Hayes.
Pull up a chair, pour up a drink, and light that cigar. We're here live from Cigaro for our first in-person interview on the Sports and Stogies podcast. Cam.
We're here with, I'm going to mess up your name again.
Degenaro. Just think of Rio.
Yep.
Just think of Rio.
Steve Degenaro, the owner/partner of the Sigaro Lounge in Hubbard, Ohio, just outside of Youngstown, if anybody's local. And why don't you go ahead and give us a little introduction, Steve?
Sure. Thanks for coming, guys. Really appreciate you guys being here, and I'm glad to show the place. And, you know, it's a new business, and we love showing it off. We love talking to people about cigars. Love showing off our house brand and really like touring people around the place. I'm Steve Degenaro, along with my partner. Last October, we bought a house in Hubbard, Ohio, beautiful downtown Hubbard, Ohio, which is in the northeast part of the state, about midway between Youngstown and Warren. And we renovated the house, and we've created a cigar store and lounge. The concept is it's a renovated house. The first floor is a retail store. So you kind of think like a Starbucks. You know, people can come in and buy a cigar. Of course, you can buy cigars and go. But you can buy a cigar and you can hang out. It's got a lot of nice little nooks and crannies and places where you could sit and hang out. You could sit in a great room with a bunch of other people, or you can kind of like creep off to a corner and be by yourself or with a friend. We have a fireplace. We always have Dean Martin or Frank Sinatra playing on the radio. We have coffee, we have soda, and of course we have all the cigars you could ever want, including our house brand, which we'll hopefully talk about. And then upstairs, second and third floor is a membership area. So members go up there. You can buy a membership. You can buy a day pass up there. You don't have to buy a full year membership. You can buy a day pass. And in fact, we give day passes when people buy a box of cigars. Yeah, that's something
That's
new.
good marketing.
Yeah, that's a new idea. So that gives people kind of a glimpse of the area upstairs. Of course, we try to tour everybody. You know, we're still relatively new, so when people come in, if they've never been in the store before, we try to give them a tour if they have time and show them around and introduce them to the concept. We're the only cigar store in Hubbard. We're probably one of about 4 or 5 places in the maybe I'd say like 2 to 3 county area. And we're very friendly competition. You know, we're friends with the other cigar lounges in the area. One of the things that I think makes us a little bit unique, at least in the local area, is because of our membership area, we have 24/7 access for the higher level of members that come in here. So upstairs, you know, it's about like it is down here, except we have big screen TVs. We have a theater room. We have a poker room. We have a kitchen. We have events. You know, if you become a member, it isn't just a kind of a geographical access thing. We also have events. And we'll sometimes open the events up to the general public, but a lot of the events are focused for the members. So we do like a bourbon tasting night or a Christmas party, or we'll have cigar sales reps that come in and do tastings. And then theme parties. You know, we do a lot of theme parties too. We've been in business since July. You know, we bought the building last October. It took quite a while to renovate. The place needed a lot of work. It needed a lot of work, and we wanted to put a lot of work into it over and above what it needed, because we wanted to establish this, you know, and I'm gesturing to show the ambiance that we have here. We wanted to make it look like it looks now, kind of a old world speakeasy 1950s kind of a place.
And the hard work paid off, Steve. As soon as we walked in and got the full tour, it's like stepping into a time machine almost. Just absolutely beautiful shop, beautiful, you know, private room upstairs and everything. The hardwood is gorgeous. All your humidors are fantastic, the furniture, and all the great decor here is what really sets it apart from most shops I've been to. But before we go any further, of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention what we're all smoking on right now, which is your house blend Maduro. So how does one go about getting a house blend, first of all, and then how did you make the Sigaro house blend what it is right now?
Yeah, so thank you for noticing that. We we actually we knew when we started the business that we wanted to have a house blend. We weren't sure where we were going to find it. There's a lot of companies that'll do a house blend for you, on your behalf, and or label their own cigars for you. But a friend of a friend introduced us to a Cuban gentleman who lives down in the Miami area, and he rolls cigars and he sells them at a small shop down in Miami. And he brought some samples, and we smoked the samples. And I've smoked cigars for 30 years, and it was love at first puff. I mean, literally lit the cigar and said, "This is one of the best cigars." Within 2 minutes, I knew that I had to have these.
I'm going to have to use that line. Love at first puff.
Yeah.
That's genius.
And it truly was, and my partner as well. I remember just kind of looking at each other and thinking, we need to have these. So the gentleman's an absolute expert at rolling cigars. He doesn't have any kind of formal distribution network, though. So we went down to Florida and met with him and talked to him about the product, and kind of had to help him create a way that he could, he had plenty of cigars. We had to figure out how to get them up here. And so we figured out how the distribution network would work. We're literally the only place except for his house where you can buy these. So this isn't something you can get in Cleveland or St. Louis or New York or Los Angeles. You can get them here, and you can get them at his place in Miami.
Yeah, and they're very tasty. A lot of natural flavors, earthy, like dirt, hay, that kind of thing, with natural tobacco really on the forefront. Great wrap, no frays, great smoke production, great draw, great burn. I mean, it's pretty much the perfect cigar. And they don't come in cellophane. They come. It's a little special there, right?
Yeah. So and actually, I'll tell you truthfully that when I saw him, I thought it was just kind of a novelty. But he wraps them in newspaper, and what he does is he takes a new piece of newspaper, and when he's done with the cigar, he wraps it. And you saw the way that it was kind of like artistically folded and sealed, and he ships them like that. And he doesn't like wrapping in cellophane. He doesn't put any kind of a band around it. The newspaper is white when he wraps the cigars, and the tobacco kind of leaches out into the newsprint. And you saw that it was almost like a yellow or sepia tone, kind of like, in some of the older listeners might remember, newspapers used to come with a section called the rotogravure, or some people called it, quote unquote, the brown section. And kind of like the comics were color, the only color that you saw in newspaper back in the day, and the brown section had kind of a sepia look to it. So we saw that, and we thought it was kind of neat, but we weren't sure what it really meant. But it does something to the taste. The cellophane is not necessarily the best way to store and preserve cigars. These are good. He rolls them, and they're good the day after he rolls them. They're good a year later too. So as long as they're properly humidified. So he ships them to us in newspapers. We don't get boxes. We put them directly in our humidor. We buy 4 sizes. He does a Maduro and a Connecticut. We have the Churchill size, which he does not necessarily call Churchill, but they're essentially a Churchill size. And then he has a Toro size that he calls La Bomba, which means the small bomb. And so same thing, Maduro and Connecticut La Bomba, Maduro and Connecticut Churchill.
And the expert crafting stands for itself. I mean, these are made just as good, if not better, than anything you get from Davidoff or Monte Cristo or any of the top-notch brands. I mean, just beautiful, and again, great dark, rich flavor, excellent draw and smoke production. I mean, these are so perfectly made. And again, to be the exclusive provider of these, barring you go to the guy's house,
yeah,
it's just another feather in your cap for the shop, really.
Yeah.
As a great Maduro fan myself, this is everything I could want out of a smoke. Fantastic so far.
Yeah, thank you. We really feel blessed to have found him. It was just sort of an accident that we found him, but we were hooked, and we love the cigar. We love sharing it with people. It's a reasonably priced cigar. These are, regardless of whether it's a La Bomba or a Churchill size, these are under $10.
That's
absolute steal.
That's a steal.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're about in the second third here, beginning to the middle of the second third, and yeah, flavor's carrying all the way through, the burn's carrying all the way through. Draw, I mean, excellent stick. They sell relatively well, or are people a little hesitant at first?
No hesitancy whatsoever. It's easily our number one seller, easily. We talked about it a lot. We posted on social media and we advertised that we were going to have these. And when we got them in at first, we gave them away. So somebody would come in and buy a couple sticks, would give them one. And I think just about everybody that we gave a cigar to came back. And now we have like a loyal following. Although he has a distribution network now because of us, he isn't necessarily consistent. So sometimes we run out, and when we run out, we'll put a note on social media that, hey, we got our house brand in, and immediately people beat a path to our door, and buy them and stockpile them, and our members put them in their members' locker. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned to you guys when I was giving you the tour earlier. He has no name for them. He doesn't call them anything. He just calls them his cigars. So we wanted to find a name. So we call them El Periodico, which means literally the newspaper. Yeah.
Excellent branding. Great idea there. Now, as we asked in the first trial run here before we had a little recording mishap, has the idea of opening a shop been a long time dream of yours, or is this kind of a newfound passion for you and your partner?
Yeah, so it's funny. I've been joking for probably 15 or 20 years. People ask me, what are you going to do when you retire? I had to do medical consulting is my career. And I've traveled. I've probably been traveling for 30 years. And up until COVID, I was traveling. I was, 100, 125 nights a year in hotels. It's a lot of travel. I was a true road warrior. Gone a lot. It worked out really well. I have a very understanding wife and two very well-adjusted sons who I raised even though I was gone a lot. And, as I'm getting a little bit older, and especially with the advent of COVID, I found myself home, and I really enjoyed being around. I didn't enjoy not doing anything, though. And so I've always been very passionate about cigars, and I kind of formulated the idea that, I'm going to turn this into a business. When I back off from my regular work, I'm probably going to hang out at a cigar place for the rest of my life. It might as well be mine.
Couldn't think of a better place to be. Everybody loves to be in their own home, something they own, right? Why not smoke cigars in your own lounge?
And have something to do.
And this place feels very homey. A lot of great personal touches here. Most notably, like I touched on earlier, all these small decor pieces. Most notably, the paintings you have upstairs, which are historical. You could say very unique stories behind those. Tell our audience how those, why they mean so much.
So one of the, I've always been interested in history, and I've always been interested in politics, and I've been especially interested in local politics. And so we had back here in the 90s a congressman, James Trafficant, who had a lot of notoriety. I actually knew him, as did most of the people from this area. And unfortunately, he ended up going to prison at the end of his career, and he spent a couple of years in the federal penitentiary. While he was in prison, he did some prison paintings, and he was selling and giving away the paintings. And I ended up with a pretty substantial collection of his paintings. And so we dedicated a room upstairs in our members' lounge to his works, and we have on display, I think there's about 5 or 6 of his paintings, including one of the most unique, which is a self-portrait that he did. And if you noticed, he had a kind of a crown of thorns in his self-portrait. So he was in prison, and he was feeling, I don't know, maybe like a little bit persecuted, and he did that painting. Actually, a friend of ours has a bar here in the Youngstown area, and that picture hung up at the bar. And Bar Rescue went into that bar and suggested that he get rid of it. They didn't like the artwork, and so he gave it to us as a housewarming present here at Sigaro.
Which is a very cool story in and of itself, let alone the artist who painted them, which is also a great story. You said you have 2 sons. Do they smoke cigars or anything like that?
They're both very casual cigar smokers. They're married and they both have babies at home now, and so they're with wives and babies. They're not doing a lot of smoking at home right now. But when they're back in Youngstown, neither of them live here. But when they're back in Youngstown, they're at Sigaro.
That's a great place to be. So they're not local.
No, one of them is a lawyer in Washington D.C. and the other one is a college professor down in Columbus.
Oh, wow. Very successful. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, as far as your personal cigar journey goes, when did you first start getting into cigars, and what started that passion for you?
So I've been smoking very casually for probably something in the 20 to 30 year range. I was smoking cigars before this latest kind of craze came about, and I kind of took my game up a little bit. My partner Jamie has a lounge in downtown Youngstown, not a business, but just an office that has a smoking lounge, and we hung out there and smoked. And when I was working, when I was out of town, I'd find myself in a hotel for 3 or 4 nights in a row, and I always sought out cigar lounges. I'd go, not every night, but one night during the week, I'd go and have a nice relaxing cigar at a cigar lounge. I finish work at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm kind of living in a hotel and not much going on in a strange town, working by myself, and it was always a very comfortable thing to do, to go find a cigar lounge and hang out. So I've been to places all over the country, and everything kind of came together, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, certainly during COVID, if not a little bit before, because I'd seen so much around the country, and because I had a friend who had a lounge. We'd been talking to people who came into his lounge about, hey, maybe we ought to take this. This is just a man cave right now, but maybe we ought to buy a building and create a lounge. And if we did that, would you become a member? We got a tremendous response. Everybody loves my partner's lounge. So we started looking for a building. The fellow that owns the winery next door to Sigaro actually is the person who brought us to Hubbard, introduced us to the community. I grew up here, but I haven't lived here since high school. So I had to kind of like reacquaint myself to the community, and a lot of the people that are, the city fathers, the mayor, the council people, the safety director, the fire chief, are people that I went to high school with and knew in the community 35, 40 years ago. So it's kind of full circle, back home.
Yeah, those are definitely great connections to have, because a lot of people tend to follow those city heroes, for lack of better terms. But yeah, I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable what you guys have done here, and I would love to see before pictures at some point.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get you some so you can put them with the make sure you incorporate them into the story, because it looked nothing like what you see here, nothing at all. It was most recently. It's always been a business, but it was most recently a pet daycare and hospice center, and so this was kind of a place where cats and dogs were coming to die, and when we bought it, it needed a lot of work. It needed a lot of renovation. It needed some major work. That beam that you see, certainly it's beautiful decoration, but it actually had to be put in there because the floor was sagging. So, we propped the floor back up and, did repairs like that. The bones of the building were pretty good. There was a good roof. There was good HVAC. There was good plumbing. But pretty much everything you see was sweat equity. My partner's hard work.
A lot of elbow grease.
A lot of elbow grease. Yeah.
And, of course, you and your partner did all this by yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
We had a crew of guys, but it was, we were the contractors, and my partner was here a little bit more than me. Every night, we both have day jobs, but he was here every night guiding his crew and, leading everything and, hammer and nails all himself. He was on the roof. He was in the cellar. He did a lot of the design himself. We relied on almost no one. Just did it all exactly the way we wanted.
And it's great to see, because me and Cam, our dream really is to open up our own cigar bar one day. So it's great to see two lifelong friends and partners, chase their dreams and kind of raise their baby up to what it is right now. So let's talk about your partner. How long have you guys known each other? How'd you meet? Tell us the story on you guys.
Yeah, so we're long-term friends. We kind of met through politics. We're both involved in politics up here, and so we actually knew each other. We've known each other for probably 15 or 20 years. And, we kind of latched onto each other because we both smoked cigars. We were both instrumental in a cigar club that they started here that was kind of affiliated with a political group. So we were founding members of a cigar club and got to know each other even better because of that. And it solidified our friendship and our partnership, and we just latched onto each other and knew that we were both passionate about the same thing, and we better do it together.
That's kind of our story too. I mean, we worked together. He trained me at our job, and he took me to my first cigar lounge, got me into the industry, and I've always wanted to do a podcast, and we banter pretty well and can bounce off of each other pretty well, so it's kind of how we ended up here.
Nice.
So hopefully we have a true story like you guys do, because that's remarkable.
Follow your dreams, because I've been in the medical business. I believe it or not, I go figure, it's a little bit ironic. I started out my career as you ready for this? Respiratory therapist.
You're a subject matter expert.
You know what a respiratory therapist does? It's not smoke cigars, let's say. So I started my career out, and I got really good at a kind of a thing called compliance, which is more the business of, it's a medical business. I'm not working as a clinician anymore, and I haven't for years, but I do medical consulting for companies so that they can bill Medicare properly, so they can stay compliant with law and regulation. I do consulting. I have a company that sells policy manuals and forms for companies like that. And I've enjoyed doing that. I mean, I loved my career. I loved it a lot. Cigars are a lot more fun, though. Cigars are a lot more fun. And, I'm on the downside of life now, and I kind of wish I'd started this, maybe when I was 20 years younger.
That's why I'm really glad that, me and Cam started young. When my buddy first turned me on cigars, I was 18 at the time, and I kind of thought, well, cigars it's like an old guy thing, right? I was dead wrong. And I think a lot of the great friendships I've made and conversations I've had have all started in cigar lounges around a good smoke and good people. That's really the core of this community, which I absolutely see personified here at the lounge and with you personally.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. And I'll tell you, that kind of triggers, a memory with me. I think you guys are probably too young to remember this, but when you think about bars, like a bar in the 1950s or 60s, even up into the 70s and early 80s, when you went to a neighborhood bar, it was a friendly place. It was a safe place. There weren't fights. There weren't bouncers. There weren't people kicking you out. There was no controversy. There weren't people falling down drunk. It was a nice place to go and have a beer or do a shot and talk to the people in the neighborhood. It was something you did after work. It was something you did in the evening. Cigar lounges now are kind of like the bars were 50 years ago in my mind. I've gone into cigar lounges literally all over the country, and I've never gone into a place where I wasn't made to feel completely 100% welcome. I've struck up friendships. I have Facebook followers and people that I know when I go to Lakeland, Florida, I look up the fellow that owns the cigar lounge. I know when I go to Jupiter, Florida, there's a cigar store I like to go in. I know a couple places in Jersey. I know a place in Philadelphia. And a lot of them have become friends, over the years. So it's a friendly business to be in, too, on top of everything else.
Yeah, with us being in our early 20s, we don't know a lot about the 70s. But
it was a good time.
Yeah.
You missed a good time.
So I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we try to reiterate the community of cigar lounges and even just going into shops and striking up conversations with the retail workers. Like, it's just the same as sitting in a lounge and having a conversation. And we try to reiterate that community so much because, like being young guys going in here, nobody looks down on us. It's not like, oh, you're too young, you wouldn't understand. It's just same old conversations like you would have with your partner or your friends in other lounges. And it's really such an amazing community to be a part of. I mean, what you're doing isn't the best for your lungs, but if you go out once or twice a week, you'll be fine, right?
I'll tell you, and maybe this is just kind of a justification that I've made in my mind, as a psychological crutch. But so I never feel as relaxed as when I'm smoking a cigar. So there's a health value to that, not necessarily to smoking, but if it causes me to relax, I have a good time when I come here. I enjoy sitting, I enjoy talking, I enjoy visiting, I enjoy smoking a cigar with people. I was here a couple weeks ago on a Saturday night, and I was sitting in one of these little pit groups, like similar to where we're sitting right now, and I was sitting with a congressman, a doctor, a bricklayer, and a college student. And we were carrying on the most interesting conversation. There's no, religion barriers or political barriers or any kind of prejudices or biases. It's just kind of everybody comes into the cigar lounge and everybody's welcome and everybody has a good time.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the community. Is you have people from all different backgrounds and occupations and ages and races, and I've learned so much and been exposed to so much by these great people in places like this. So yeah, I'm very, very glad I got into this hobby and this community. And of course, a main part of that, which is how we met, you, Steve, is the Ohio Cigar Mafia, which again does a lot of great charity. We've talked about them plenty of times on the show. That's how you got in touch with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was good to meet you online. The phenomenon of social media and online has really, I'm sure it happens in all industries, but in the cigar world, I mean, we've had people come in here that saw us on Facebook that were in town from, places hundreds of miles away, and they search online or they look on Facebook and try to find us. Of course, we have a website. We have a very active Facebook page too, but we also have a website, and we do a lot of social media advertising to alert people to what our events are and what we're doing here.
And as you told us earlier, you've had some high-profile, famous people come through these doors.
Yeah. So there's and again, if you're in your early 20s, I don't know if this is going to mean anything to you, but there's a wonderful guy from I guess I'll say my era, Donnie Iris and the Cruisers. Have you heard of him?
We did our research. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Donnie Iris is a cigar guy, and a friend of a friend. We have some mutual friends, and he loves cigars, and he loves El Periodico, and he's been up here.
Just very cool. And why don't you tell us about some of the people who have been in your previous spot before here?
Yeah, so our spot in downtown Youngstown, which is not a commercial, it's not a business, it's just a man cave, and it's one of the coolest rooms in Youngstown, Ohio, and he calls it the Speakeasy. There's a bar, there's a humidor, 7 or 8 guys can fit in there very comfortably. We've probably had 35, 40 people in there uncomfortably, and when there's an event in downtown Youngstown, especially before, but even today, if there's an event going on in Youngstown, we'll go down there and just kind of open the doors and tell our friends, and the word spreads. And we've had all manner of, sports folks and rock and roll stars and congressmen and politicians and local business people and business people from out of town that are visiting, that have been in there. Don't ask me how he ended up there, but there was a guy that owns wineries out in Napa, was in town for some kind of an event, and he knew somebody who knew about the Speakeasy, and they called and asked if they could come down, and he came in and was able to see the lounge and really liked it. I mean, people that went in there loved the room, and that room was the inspiration for Sigaro. It was truly the inspiration. We wanted to replicate what we have down there. So if you went downtown and saw that room, it's like this, only much, 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 much smaller.
Yeah, I would say you guys definitely did it justice in recreating that early, 60s, 50s feel? That's probably what you were going for?
Yeah, 50s and back, I would say. Yeah, we always have Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin on the radio you hear in the background. And then when you go upstairs on the TVs, we kind of start. Of course, the members can put on whatever they want, but we kind of start out with like a Turner Classic Movies and some of the old black and white TV shows, things like that. So it kind of takes you back. and it's funny because we do that down at the Speakeasy, my partner's lounge downtown, and we've carried that through to here. And so the people who have been to the lounge downtown always remark that this is exactly like the place downtown.
Yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. And the way you guys do your memberships with the 24/7 access and the post boxes that I'd like for you to elaborate on is the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, so, that was just kind of one of those things that just popped into I'm not even going to take credit for it. My partner, it just popped into his head. We go to auctions a lot, because we're looking for old memorabilia to hang up on the walls. And we want old Youngstown history, old political history, old sports from the area, things like that. And he went to an auction once, and they had those old brass post office boxes, banks of them, just big, heavy, load them on the back of a truck, banks of them. So he bought a bunch of them, and we threw them in a warehouse, and they've been in that warehouse for probably 8 or 10 years. And when we built the humidor, one of the walls of the humidor are old post office boxes. So when you become a member here, you get one of those post office boxes, and we key it, so you have a key. So when you come in, you can buy cigars and put them in your box. Or we can put cigars from the humidor into the box if we have giveaways.
And that has to be a one-of-a-kind humidor. I've never seen or heard of anything like that before.
Yeah, it's a pretty good concept. And like I said, it sprung into my partner's head. I've never seen it anywhere that I've gone.
And one of the coolest places that you show us on the tour is the theater room upstairs, which I believe your partner soundproofed with a pretty unique method.
Yeah, so because he's going to auctions and because we're buying architectural salvage, he ended up with he wanted to put a theater room in. He thought it would be a good idea to be able to watch TV here, not just on the big screen TV in the TV room, but to have a dedicated area where you could go in and sit in a very comfortable chair, like a theater room that people have in their house. So he converted a bedroom into that upstairs, and after he built it, you go in there and turn the TV on, and it made a lot of noise. So he ended up getting some hotel headboards that he bought architectural salvage, and he mounted those on the wall. And of course, when you look at them, it just looks like a Naugahyde, wall covering. You can't even really tell what they are, but it does an excellent job of soundproofing, and it looks good too, right?
Yeah, it looks fantastic. And I've told this to you probably 15 times now. You've checked off every single box I could dream of in a cigar lounge. Between the theater room, the poker room, the great sticks, the house blends, the bar here, the ambiance. Like I said, I feel like I should be wearing a pinstripe suit right now. I should have came a little more dressed up. It's as close as I can ever get to being a part of that time in the 50s and 60s, which I have such affinity for. Blew me away, Steve.
Yeah,
Absolutely beautiful place here.
That's great. Thank you so much.
So with that, we're going to take our first quick break, and we'll be back with you guys on the special edition Sports and Stogies first interview show after this.
Sounds good.
Welcome back, everybody. We're just going to dive right back in because there's a lot of big plans for your shop here. Let's talk about future expansions you're working on.
Yeah, so kind of the last thing that we're working on as far as renovating the house that you see here is we're putting a deck on the second floor. So our property backs up to a winery. There's a beautiful outdoor space back there, and in the summer it's a music venue. So he'll do Jimmy Buffett night or have a local band back there, and there'll be 75 or 100 people back there. And so when we saw this place, we thought we need to really latch on and connect with the winery and the entertainment district that we have here and kind of tap into that, that part of the neighborhood. So to that end, we've got some plans that just recently got approved, probably a little bit too late in the year to do it this year, but certainly in the spring, we're going to go out the door that you saw in the TV room, and we're going to have a nice big deck back there that's going to overlook the area where the music venue is. Probably be doing that in the spring.
It's going to be great to hear some live music while smoking a cigar for sure. Have some tabletop fireplaces out there and stuff like that, I'm sure. But, yeah, that's a awesome expansion, and that's going to help out with the events you guys throw. Your most recent one was the Veterans Day event. Why don't you tell us some about that and how successful that was.
Yeah, so one of the things, because we're a membership lounge, we have the first floor is retail, the second floor is our membership lounge, and membership here isn't just a geographical thing. It isn't just that you get to go upstairs. It's also that you get to participate in events that we have. And we're very committed to that. We think it's very important to give them some value for their membership. And to that end, we actually have an employee here who's we call her the cruise director. And so that, all that name implies, a cruise director, her job is to create events, curate events, plan events. And so we've had probably 3 or 4 events already. Most recently, last Friday, we had a Veterans Day. It's kind of a salute. What we did was we approached all the local businesses here in the entertainment district, and also some friends of ours who have businesses in other neighboring and adjacent communities. And we got wings and chicken, and one of our members did walleye. We had somebody made spaghetti and meatballs. We have a beautiful Eastern European restaurant that makes homemade pierogies here. You guys know what pierogies are, right? That's not just a Youngstown thing. So she donated pierogies. So we brought in food and we set up tables, and we invited all the local VFWs and veterans groups and advertised it pretty well, but also sent the invitation out to the veterans, the VFW halls. And we had a really, really good turnout. We had a lot of veterans that came in and ate. We served food from, I think it was about 4 o'clock until about 8 o'clock. Of course, we were open all day, and we were open long after 8 o'clock, but we probably served about 75 veterans that day. And we collected money. We didn't charge any admission or anything like that, but we had a jar out for donations. We were able to collect a couple $100 for veterans causes. And we have a couple different veterans causes that we're supporting. And this specific event, we're supporting a group called Southeastern Guard Dogs, Guide Dogs. And Southeastern Guide Dogs is out of Florida, and they train dogs for veterans, blind or disabled or post-traumatic stress syndrome dogs. And so we're going to donate to that charity from that event.
Which, of course, the Ohio Cigar Mafia that's their main charity as well, which is what really drew us to that group initially. All the great outreach they do in the communities all across the state for those people that really need that. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's a testament to how welcoming and how helpful the cigar community is and can be. It's really a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you. I think all businesses, regardless of what the industry is, should give something back. Regardless of what it is. Pick a cause. There's a bunch of great causes out there, and just the one that we happen to latch on to is the veterans. We think it's not just that it's a cigar demographic, but it's something that we're both passionate about. I was never in the military, but my grandfathers were. My partner was in the Army. A lot of our friends were in the Army or the Navy, or some of them are still active duty right now. So it was just something that we thought was a good cause to latch onto and give something back.
Now, any events in the works coming up here soon?
Yeah, so let's see. We have a couple that we feel kind of very passionate about. So kind of a long story along with it, but you see the humidors, the Monte Cristo humidors. So let me give you some background. So they're the Monte Cristo Cigar Company in the 1970s and 1980s came out with 4 replicas of the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Monument, the Jefferson Memorial, the White House, and the U.S. Capitol. Did I just name 4? Okay, good. Yeah, so they came out with 4 different humidors. You're sitting under the White House right now. They're massive. They're for 350 cigars, give or take, depending on the size of the cigars. They have Spanish cedar inside. They're made of a composite material. They probably weigh about 35 or 45 pounds each. And we own 3 of the 4. We have the White House, which is down here. We have the U.S. Capitol, which you guys saw on the 2nd floor. And we have the Lincoln Memorial, which is up on the 3rd floor in our office. And the reason it's up in the office is because We just thought it was kind of special. There's not very many places that have these. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill it up with Monte Cristo cigars, and we're going to have an event. We're going to try to have an event, and part of the event is going to be a formal unveiling of that humidor here. That's going to be a members event. We're probably going to do like a bourbon tasting in conjunction with it. Don't have a date for you yet, but it'll be on social media once we lock down a date.
Oh, and we will definitely be sharing that for you. Like you said, they were only sold in the 70s and 80s. They only made, what, I think you said 500?
Yep, 500 of each. They made 500 of each, and they actually were never sold. What I've come to learn, I didn't know this when I saw the White House the first time, but what I've come to learn is that they made 500 of each, and they gave them to their 500 best dealers. And the dealers could give them away, they could raffle them, they could sell them, they could keep them, they could throw them away. My sense is that a lot of them have been damaged and thrown away over the years. So I've got 3 of the 4. I've only seen 1 Lincoln Memorial, and that's the one that's upstairs. I've only seen 3 of the Capitol. 1 of them is upstairs. And I've probably seen about 6 or 7 of the White House. For some reason, the White House is a little easier to find, but none of them are what I would call easy to find. They were all a challenge.
To the common eye, I think the White House is a lot more of a, oh, I know that's the White House kind of thing. So that's probably why they're a little more common. But especially because the ones you do have are in such good condition, that's even more impressive. And I'm sure you're scouring everywhere for the last one you do not have.
Yeah, if anybody out there knows anything about a Jefferson Memorial, these were made by, they call them American Heritage Series, and they were made by Monte Cristo Cigar Company. And we're hot on the trail of a Jefferson Memorial. It'd be special to have all 4 of them. And
you had mentioned to us at one time or another you actually owned 5 of the White Houses, correct?
Yeah, 500 of them made, and I've owned 5 of them over the years. So
you had 1% of all of them ever made.
My wife pointed that exact fact out to me.
I would imagine you're probably one of, if not the only guy to accomplish that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody out there that has all of them, but the only place that I know of is there's a cigar lounge in Washington, D.C. that has all 4 of them.
Where better to have them
in the district? Yeah, right in the district. So I it's certainly part of my intention. I want all 4 of them. We have them spread out throughout the house because we didn't realize we were going to be able to find the other ones. But I think we'll probably redecorate, and when we get that 4th one, we'll put them together somewhere.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's quite the collection, and especially with how rare they are, and especially finding them in the great condition you are finding them in is even more impressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you guys are going to see pictures of the ones we've seen on our social medias, and you'll see videos and pictures of the lounge itself. It is just, it's almost leaves you speechless.
Thank you.
And one of the coolest pieces I've seen here was the signed Oscar de la Hoya glove you got upstairs. How did that come to be here?
Yeah, so, believe it or not, that was one of our members donated that to us. So my partner, who you're going to meet here in the next couple hours, is actually a boxing judge, and he's in business. He does bourbon. He's a distiller, and he makes bourbon with boxers. And so you've seen other boxing memorabilia throughout the place, especially Youngstown boxing. We have Boom Boom is from Youngstown. Kelly the Ghost Pavlik is from Youngstown. We have a rich boxing history here.
So are those, well, I guess we can save those questions for him, but I'm assuming they do a lot of collabs with boxers, like distilling wise.
Yeah, another event that we plan on doing, we don't have a date for this yet, but we're going to do a bourbon tasting. And when we do the bourbon tasting, we're going to try to get as many of those boxers that he's affiliated with and that he's friends with. We're going to try to get as many of them to be here as possible.
Oh, yeah, that would be very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, I can't help but just look around and just be completely amazed. And your guys' humidor, your partner built, and the shelving is all Spanish cedar, correct?
Yeah, so and it was kind of funny because so much of the material that went into this place was architectural salvage. The Spanish cedar we had to buy retail. We had to go to the store and buy it retail, and it's pretty expensive. And when you go into a lot of cigar stores, you see they'll do some Spanish cedar pieces, and the rest of the humidor is built from some other material, or some of these cases that you see, where the case has Spanish cedar on the shelves, but is not entirely made of Spanish cedar. When you walk into our humidor, it's pretty much 100% Spanish cedar. There's a lot of cedar in there.
Yeah, again, it is pristine. Now, a question for me and Cam. Like we mentioned, our dream is to open up a shop like this someday. What has been the hardest part of opening the shop, and what advice would you have for us going forward to hopefully accomplish our dream?
So I'd say that I knew a lot about cigars going into it. I didn't necessarily know a lot about the business of cigars. And Ohio is kind of an expensive place to do a cigar business. Our license is about $1,200 a year. So that's a big nut to crack every year, the $1,200. There's other states where it's literally a fraction of that amount. As far as taxes go, you pay a tax when the tobacco comes into your store, and you pay, of course, a sales tax when it goes out. So I guess my best advice would be to do your research. Do a business plan, and realize how much the cigars are going to cost you. And it gave me a whole new appreciation. When I go into a cigar lounge, because I've smoked cigars a lot, I carry some of my own cigars with me. And what I'll do is if I'm out of town and I have maybe some El Periodicos with me, I'll take them into the lounge with me. But I always make it a point to buy some cigars, which is kind of the etiquette of I'm going to buy cigars even if I'm going to smoke what I bring in. I always want to buy some cigars at whatever lounge I'm visiting.
Which is another testament to how great the community is. I mean, seriously, I don't know how many of our viewers are specifically cigar guys. I don't know how many of them are specifically sports guys. But our goal is to hopefully combine that community, which you see a lot of people interested in sports in the cigar community. And so mainly, I guess, the cigar community get more interested in sports, however that may work out. But, yeah, it's just such an amazing community. And like you said, and you have a new appreciation for cigars, being a business owner yourself that deals in tobacco products. It's just all the ins and outs now. So you know what they're going through. And you're just like, hey, well, I'm not going to smoke it right now, but I'm going to go ahead and buy a couple, and that's just amazing, and that really tells who you are as a person.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one. I mean, I don't think nobody ever comes in here. We've never had any problems here. We've never had anybody take advantage of us, and I've never gone into a cigar lounge where people took advantage. I think that etiquette is always there.
Now, of course, we touched on how much elbow grease went into the startup of this place. Did you have any pushback from the wife when you first started up? And did you ever have any second doubts about yourself? It's quite the undertaking to do what you guys have done so far.
Yeah, thanks. Doubts myself? No, never, because this was something that I was passionate about, and as far as making money, as far as it was a good business plan, I think we set out to build ourselves a lounge, and if we could make a little bit of money doing it, or we could cover our expenses, that's great. But a lot of this is just we built our own lounge, so no doubts myself. And I'd have to say that my family was very supportive too. My wife's not a cigar smoker by any stretch. I can smoke at home on my deck. I can't smoke at home in my house. She was really happy to see the White House leave our condo and come over here to Hubbard. So I think she's been extremely supportive. In fact, on Veterans Day, she cooked a big pot a commercial pot full of wedding soup, and was here serving the veterans. So she hangs out here too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you know roughly how long it took the renovation before you guys opened your doors?
Yeah, so we bought the place in October of 21. We had about 95% of the renovations done within about 4 months. We didn't open until July, though. The last couple months, we were going back and forth about putting in a handicapped accessible bathroom. We weren't sure where we were going to do that or how we were going to do it. We actually thought about waiting until we had the deck built before we opened. So we probably could have opened up within about 4 or 5 months of buying the building. But because of those last couple little, minor details, we didn't open until July. And finally in July we said, you know what, this deck is going to take some thought, and we're going to have to get approvals, and we're going to have an architect do a formal design. Let's go ahead and open up without the deck. So we haven't had a grand opening yet. In fact, we're planning on doing a grand opening when the deck's done.
Well, that'll be a significant business venture for sure.
Yeah.
Hopefully brings a lot more crowd than you already have, which is a substantial amount for your only advertisement being your own social medias.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously whatever groups you're in and whoever you partner with, and they'll advertise for you as well. But yeah, to be as successful as you are without having a grand opening is very impressive. And I'm very thankful that you guys are opened enough to have us come in here and get the word out about you guys. Again, can't reiterate enough. Make sure you go to our social medias or theirs. Sigaro on everything, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Sigaro with an S is actually the Italian word for cigars.
Well, we have a fella here with a lot of Italian blood running through him. I'm sure that just made him very happy.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
And again, I think your biggest selling point are these incredible house blends. I can't get enough of these, man. Absolutely incredible smoke. I guess, like I established, as a big Maduro guy myself, this is really a cigar that seems made personally for me.
Yeah, it was.
It was
made personally for you. Yeah, that's exactly what a house brand is all about. A lot of companies, I see them all over the country, and you can go to Fuente, or you can go to Oliva, and you can have them brand. You get your own little advertisement.
Yeah,
with
like
it, name it.
Basically an Oliva or a Fuente disguised.
Exactly. And we thought about doing that. That was actually one of the options. But when we tried this cigar, we knew that we had to have it.
Yeah, it's definitely very good, and I will be, like he said, taking home a handful of each because I'm gonna love to try the Connecticut. We never really touched on the flavor profile of the Connecticut, so you got any insight? Obviously, you have insight on what that would be.
Oh yeah. I've tried them all. Yeah, I'm a Maduro guy. I like the Maduro a little better than the Connecticut. The way the gentleman that rolls them describes them, his Connecticut's are a little more robust. They're a little bit darker than a typical Connecticut, and his Maduros, at least according to him, are not quite as robust as some of the Maduros that you've smoked. So you can't really go wrong. I mean, I've been out of Maduros and smoked Connecticut's, and they're excellent cigars. As far as a flavor profile, they're pretty much the things that you said: earth, hay, tobacco. I mean, it's all about the tobacco. There's no fruit or nut taste to it whatsoever. The Connecticut is a little bit lighter. I get a lot of coffee taste with the Connecticut, and I'm anxious for you guys to try one of the Connecticut's as well.
Oh, we absolutely will.
Yeah.
Well, you said you're a native of Hubbard, so why don't you tell us a little bit about this little town? We drove through, and it's smaller than any small town Ohio I've seen.
Yeah, it's a great little town. I thanks for the opportunity to brag about it. I actually went to school here. I grew up in Hubbard.
Where is the school?
So it is about 3 miles from us. It used to be about 100 yards from us, and the building that used to be the school is now a community center right down the road. I graduated from high school, and I moved away, not too long after that, and I've never been back. Or I mean, I've been back to visit, but I haven't come back to do business or live. So I live about 30 miles from here, and we found this place really, frankly, because of the winery next door. That's what brought us to Hubbard. But I've reacquainted myself. There's a lot of people that I've stayed friends with that I went to high school, but I've also reacquainted myself with a lot of the people that I went to high school with that I'd fallen out of touch with. And I got to say, I didn't realize what a great community it was until I came back. They're very welcoming. The mayor of this town was one of our first members. The city fathers, the people on council, the people in emergency services, the firemen, the policemen, fantastic individuals, very supportive of business. As soon as we expressed an interest in this building, they came out of the woodwork. Is there anything we can do for you? What can we do to enhance or to help you succeed? And that's refreshing. I mean, to have a community that is that much behind you. We have all of them recommend us. All of them send their friends and family to us. All of them support us.
So, did any of them come in and help with the renovations at all, or?
Nobody swung a hammer, but I guess now that you mention it, yeah, nobody came in. And by the way, guys, we're building a deck next spring, so
yeah, get those hammers ready.
It's not too late. Yeah, but I'd say that's the only thing they didn't do. I mean, they literally, we had, for instance, we had somebody that works in safety services in conjunction with the fire department, came in when we were in the middle of renovation and actually gave us advice about fire exits and fire extinguishers and not a formal inspection, just a guy helping us out and saying, hey, you might want to do this before
when the formal inspection is.
Exactly, yeah. So and it's that kind of I really appreciate that as a business owner. I own a medical consulting company too, which doesn't necessarily have a brick and mortar store like this, but to have a community that supports a business is really a wonderful thing. I mean, it's a logical thing because, if we succeed, it helps the community. It helps the neighborhood. It helps we're going to pay taxes here.
Yeah, the local economy.
Yeah, the economy. So it absolutely makes sense. But it's refreshing to find a community that has been so welcoming. I just can't say enough good about Hubbard.
Yeah, that's the thing about these small towns in Ohio. They love their small towns.
Yeah. And it's, it's a sports community too. The football field is about 300 yards behind me. And so on a Friday night when there's a home game, we notice a spike at about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. The guys that all went to the football game to watch their kids, or the guys that graduated, of course you got to be 21, so they're guys that graduated at least a couple years ago, they come in. We notice a little spike after the football game. There's 2 or 3 golf courses within a couple miles of here. And so, in the summer we had guys coming in before or after golfing. So
definitely a solid spot to land yourself. Do you have any intentions of moving back?
So it's funny you mention that because my wife and I both like the community a lot. We have a condominium now. We don't have a house. We have a condo on a lake about 30 miles from here. And I think if I was looking for a place, I'd look in Hubbard.
Now, of course, you mentioned you're a very well-traveled gentleman. Have you ever been down to like the Dominican or Nicaragua or Cuba to tour some of those tobacco plantations and production plants?
So I've actually been to some of those places, but I've never toured the tobacco places. I've been to Nicaragua. I've been to Honduras. I've been to Guatemala. I've never been to Cuba. It's high on my list. I'd love to go to Cuba.
Yeah, it's definitely on our bucket list.
Yeah, we have now. This is kind of a grandiose idea here, but one of the things that we hope to do with our members is possibly do some kind of trips. Like a kind of a sponsored event, and go down to. You guys have heard of Ybor City in Tampa? Of
Absolutely,
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so certainly to go to Ybor City, but I'd really like to try to do something and get a group together and go down to the Dominican Republic and maybe ultimately Cuba as well.
Yeah, that'd be a goal for sure. You're definitely living our dream, Steve.
Yeah.
I'd love to be, set on that path down the road. Ybor is actually where my buddy went when he first turned me on to cigars. He took a trip down there and came back and said, "Dude, you got to start smoking cigars."
Yeah,
and it's been a passion ever since.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place. And when I worked down in Florida, the medical side. I work down in Florida fairly frequently, and if I'm anywhere near Tampa, I mean, within 50 miles, when I finish work at the end of the day, I'll head into Tampa and go to Ybor just to get dinner and have a cigar.
Yeah, beautiful place, man. With that, we're going to take our last break. We'll come back and wrap up with Steve here. Of course, check out the socials for the pictures of the beautiful shop here, the private lounge upstairs. SnS interview episode back after this. All right, welcome back to Sports and Stogies here with our guest Steve Degenaro. Been a wonderful time so far. I want to thank you again for having us out. Been a great opportunity and just to see this beautiful place you got here and have these incredible house blend sticks, the El Periodico. In my top 5 now for sure, if not number 1.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad you guys
So we
came
talked
up.
some off air during the break about your family history and your lineage there. Of course, we share some Italian blood. So talk us through that. How you came and your family came over here.
Yeah.
back in the day.
So Youngstown and Hubbard, in fact, is have very significant Italian populations. There's a lot of Italian immigrants, maybe second, third, fourth generation. My great grandparents came from Italy. My grandparents were both immigrants as young kids, and they came directly to Ohio. They ended up coming here because of the steel mills. We were a big steel town back in the 1920s up until about the 1970s. So they came here for that industry. And recently I got interested, just really within the last probably 10 years. My wife and I visited Italy a couple times and literally fell in love with it. I mean, absolutely. I don't mean went on vacation and thought, wow, this is a beautiful place. I mean, we got obsessed with it. So to the point where we said, boy, wouldn't it be nice to have a place over here? I like going to Florida. I like the weather. I like the state. It's a beautiful place. But to snowbird down there is not as exciting or interesting to me as snowbirding over in Europe somewhere. So we liked it enough that we thought it might be nice to own property over there. And we started looking into it. And although an American is allowed to own property over there, there's some real tax advantages if you're an Italian citizen. And the laws over there changed after I got interested in it. And so I've been pursuing Italian citizenship. I'm going to become a dual citizen, or I hope to become a dual citizen. I was full steam ahead before COVID. In fact, if COVID hadn't happened, I probably would have got it in 20 or maybe early 21. But COVID really stopped the court proceedings over there. So November 7th, just a couple weeks ago, there was a hearing over in Italy, and my case was presented. I didn't go. I wanted to go. My lawyer said, you don't have to. He said, it's very anticlimactic. You're not going to get to participate. You can sit in the audience if you want to, but he says you'd be better off coming once you get it and, doing an oath over there during the time. So I'm not going to leave America. I'm not going to give up my American citizenship. I'm so proud and so happy to be an American, but I'm going to have dual citizenship if things go the way I hope and think they go.
Which is very cool because not only, like you said, it's a beautiful place that you fell in love with, but so rich in history and ancient Rome and all those kinds of places. I mean, I'm sure you couldn't get enough of all that either.
It's absolutely beautiful, and I think we counted. I think we've been to, my wife and I have been to about 10 countries over there in Europe. Pretty well traveled. We've always enjoyed travel. As we're getting older, we're starting to travel even more. COVID has slowed us down a little bit, but Italy, my personal bias aside, I think it's the most beautiful place in the world. The food is spectacular. The wine is wonderful. The culture, the people, the friendliness. I just can't say enough good about it. And we fell in love with it the first time we saw it, and we've seen it a lot of times since then. And looking forward to maybe having a place over there. And God willing, if I live long enough to be able to retire and go back and forth and spend maybe 6 or 8 months here in this cigar lounge, and then a couple months over there in Italy.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
Now, a man as well traveled as yourself. Any bucket list places you haven't been to yet, besides Cuba, like you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so Cuba would be on the top of that bucket list. Cuba is definitely somewhere that I've always wanted to go. It's definitely a possibility now. It's a safe place to travel. There's actually cigar tourism there, and so we'd like to do that. My wife's pretty interested in seeing Cuba as well. And then another place that I don't know, things are going to have to change in the world. We've always been interested in going to Russia, And of course, I wouldn't set foot there right now.
But again, of course, a lot of history and architecture and beautiful places to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I think me and Cam have never been out of the country. You have? Well, my mistake. I haven't been out of the country.
Yeah, that counts. That counts. Yeah.
So definitely planning on that over the future. Like I said, I hope to go to Sicily either next year or the year after, where my family's from originally.
Nice.
But a long ways to go to catch up to you, Steve.
Yeah. So when you go to Italy, just keep in mind, I think the rule of thumb, it's they talk about northern Italy and southern Italy, and of course Sicily is as far south as you can go. And I'm one of the people, they say some people don't like it as you go down there. The farther south you go, the better it gets. It becomes very intense. It becomes loud. It becomes boisterous. I think the food is better in the south. I like the people in the south better. There's nothing wrong with the northern part of Italy, but the farther south you go, the more beautiful it gets, and the more I like the people and the culture.
Now, would you have an ideal time of the year to go weather-wise over there?
We don't like going in the summer. There's big crowds in the summer. It's hot. It's probably, most of the places that you're going to want to go, like Rome and Naples, Pompeii, places like that, are probably, I don't know if it's longitude or latitude, but, it's probably like equivalent with like Georgia or northern Florida. So if you go there in June or July, it's going to be hot and humid. They don't have air conditioning in a lot of even the nice hotels. Some of them don't have air conditioning. So, and of course the crowds are bad. So we like fall, we like spring, we like even winter, really, just about any time except the 3 months of summer.
Of course, though, the heat would be welcomed as we're in cold, wintry Ohio right now, and 30-degree temperatures outside.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little warmer than it is in northern Ohio, if you go there in the winter, but it's cold. You need a jacket. And it's kind of interesting. You go to some of those towns and they have the piazzas, where people are sitting outside, and they serve people from the restaurants outside. It'll be 48 degrees out, and they put those heat lamps up, and they actually, the tables that are outside, they'll put blankets on the tables. And so people will kind of like wrap up in the blankets and sit outside and have a Negroni and have a cigar and live like the dream.
Paradise.
Live the dream.
Anything else you want to touch on here before we wrap up, Steve?
Yeah, so probably the thing that I'd emphasize about Sigaro, which we, of course we hit on, but I'll emphasize it. So we have a cruise director, and I think that, we're open to the public. We're always, love to see new people, love to have people that come up just for, for the day or for a couple hours, come in and have a cigar, enjoy. You can get a day pass. You don't have to buy a membership for a year. You can get a day pass if you want to go upstairs or out on the deck. But, the membership part of our business, we have a cruise director and we have events. And some of the events that we're talking about, that we've talked about a little bit, we're going to have a Christmas party. We're going to have an unveiling for our humidor, our Monte Cristo humidor. We haven't quite figured out when that's going to be or how we're going to do it, but I know we're going to stock that humidor with Monte Cristo cigars. We're planning on doing some bourbon tastings. We have a guy, I've never been a big fan of this, but we have a guy who knows a lot about tequila and mezcal and pairing it with cigars, which is kind of a foreign concept to me. I've never done that, but he's going to come and do a members event where we pair tequilas with cigars. We're planning on doing some kind of a paella dinner. Paella is a kind of a Hispanic dish, so we're going to have an opportunity for our members to come, and we'll cook paella for them, and we'll probably have sangria, and we'll probably have cigars too that day.
Sounds absolutely fantastic. Steve, once again, I can't thank you enough for the invite, for your hospitality. It's been so welcoming here in this beautiful shop with your beautiful house blend sticks. And our first opportunity to hit up on the road, for a show that's been going on for, less than 3 months now. To get our first chance like this, we owe you a lot, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your time, of course. This is the Sigaro Lounge. Find Sigaro on all socials. That's Sigaro with an S. Here in Hubbard, Ohio.
Thanks, guys. You guys are always welcome up here.
And with that, you know what we say, everybody. Sports and Stogies to the moon.